All right, what's going on, everybody? And we are back inside the Torch Room with another Torch Room Theory episode. So today I mostly want to talk to massage therapists in the field of bodybuilding. So massage therapy in the sport of bodybuilding, and does it play a role? Some people believe massage really benefits bodybuilders. Some people think it has no value, but guess what? They're both absolutely true. Bodybuilders have been using massage therapy now since like the early 2000s. And before then, it really wasn't implemented as much. So that's going to be today's topic. So I really want to focus on that and what to look for and what to think about as a massage therapist when you say, hey, I want to work with bodybuilders. And we're looking at amateurs, the national level, and IFBB pros. That's a big general statement saying I just want to work with bodybuilders. So I first want to let people know, other massage therapists know, is what does it mean to work with bodybuilders? And first we have to understand the sport of bodybuilding. You know, it's not always about the big muscles. It's not always about the biggest guy in the gym. It's not always about the biggest pro walking the bodybuilding stage. And, you know, some people say, I want to work with bodybuilders, and immediately they start thinking about guys like this guy and like this guy. And maybe this big guy right here. Is that bodybuilding? Yes, it is. But what if I told you there are other categories to bodybuilding? A lot more, like 7 other categories to bodybuilding that kind of use the same platform. And now we're talking about like the bikini competitors, like this girl, and maybe a wellness competitor, like this girl, and maybe a fitness girl, like the famous Missy Trust guy. And there's many more. So there's a lot to bodybuilding than just, I want to work with the biggest muscly guy in the gym or the greatest IFBB pro. When we start to understand what is bodybuilding, we have to first understand that there are many different categories, anywhere from bikini to open bodybuilding, everything in between. So I believe there's 10 different categories, 7 for the women and 3 for the men. So that's a lot of different categories and a lot of different athletes that have to develop muscle tissue very differently, but all kind of use the same platform that I believe is very beneficial to us as massage therapists, that what we can think about how we actually approach each session while we work with bodybuilders on their journey to walking on stage. Once we get to know the bodybuilder lifestyle, we have to know, like, what's their philosophy on training? Is it just being the strongest guy, or is it actually developing muscle tissue? How does the coach train each athlete? What's their philosophy on training? Some people train heavy compound movements, some do very isolated movements. Some eat an excess amount of calories, some don't eat a lot. So that's why it's very good to know as a massage therapist, like who your client is, what category they're gonna be performing in, and where they're at in their journey. Not all of us have the privilege of working with these athletes for the full year. We might only get a small amount of time. But I wanted to break these phases down that I believe are most beneficial for massage therapists when we work in the bodybuilding industry, not just the athletes, but the industry. And the 3 phases, I believe, are their growth season, the prep season, and the peak week. We're just gonna simplify to those three phases right there. So in the growth season, we're gonna start with the first one, the growth season. So what happens during the growth season? This is when the bodybuilders, doesn't matter what category, this is where they do a lot of the heavy work, a lot of the compound movements, excess calories. They're putting certain amount of training inside the gym with specific intention to grow muscle tissue. So I'm not a coach, I'm not a trainer, I'm not a guru on exercising, but we're talking about massage therapy and how it plays a role. So they specifically stress out the muscle tissue in a very unique way to promote muscle growth using certain vitamins, supplements, certain nutrition, and certain training methods. And each one is gonna be different depending on the athlete, how they respond, and the category and where they're at. So that's the growth season. So what can massage therapists really do for a bodybuilder in the growth season? And this, I think, is universal for every category. And the number one thing I believe is keeping the muscle tissue pliable. That's it. This is where we can actually perform the more aggressive treatments, the deep tissue, maybe the deep scraping, maybe the more aggressive cupping, some extreme trigger point therapy. So with that unique training method that they use, or during the phase of the grow, a lot of muscle tissue breakdown is happening at the same time. Muscle repair needs to happen as well, so they can promote their growth in a specific way that's viewed by their coach and other people on their team. So our main goal is keeping the muscle tissue pliable. Can it grow? Can it receive the nutrients that they're feeding it during the times that they need to recover and rest? That's where we actually shine. A lot of people think, oh, it's just deep tissue every single day, every day of the year, and that's not really true. My philosophy on this is do the most aggressive sessions where they're really, really damaging the muscle tissue so they can actually promote more muscle growth during the growth phase. And this can last a year, it can last 2 years for some athletes, and sometimes it can only last 3 months. So when you understand where the athlete is at in their phase, that's when you know it's time to get to work and do your homework. So know the sport of bodybuilding, know the category you're going to be working with the athletes. So, but that's what we can really do. And don't emphasize too much on what technique should I use, and I say this a lot to people that I mentor, one-on-one. It's not really about the technique. It's about your approach to massage therapy. It's about your approach to understanding their lifestyle, how they train, how they consume certain amount of calories. All that's going to be a deciding factor on how you're going to approach these sessions to actually help the athlete grow during their growth phase. And I think the greatest thing that we actually just give these bodybuilders is, I think with clean, healthy muscle tissue, we can actually improve 10 to 15% more clean muscle tissue during their growth, which will advance them to their next phase, which would be phase number 2, which would be the prep season. The prep season is when they start the diet phase. And they're slowly gonna start dieting harder and harder during this phase. Some people's prep phases are 10 weeks. It can go as high as 20 weeks. So understand your athlete, get to know where they're at on their prep phase and what category, again, I can't stress it enough, what category are they gonna be working towards. So during the prep phase, this is where it gets really, really tricky, because now you really have to understand the categories that you're working with. You cannot work on an open bodybuilder and the same way you would work on a bikini competitor, and vice versa, and everything in between. They all have very unique, specific physiques that they have to reach, and it's our job to actually kind of maneuver around the muscle tissue to see where it's most stressful at. So, and what does that really mean? I think this is a place where massage therapists can advance away from the aggressive massage treatments and trying to keep the muscle tissue pliable and clean and healthy and scar-free, to now working with the fascia. So there's going to be more fascial adhesions. And I've known that to be true just by my experience working in the industry of bodybuilding. And why the fascial adhesions? Why does that come more abundant during the prep phase? And this is where the training switches. And this is where it gets tricky. The training is going to switch from each individual bodybuilder from grow season to prep season. And it's going to be so different for every other bodybuilder. It's going to be different. I've known some athletes to never train upper body for a whole year, but they'll do 4 or 5 leg training sessions a week, So again, get to know your athlete, get to know their training method and how they're actually implementing the training regime during the prep season. But I believe just targeting the fascia, keeping the fascia pliable, allows more blood flow to the muscle tissue, so now they can push more and more blood into the tissue, looking for greater pumps. And now, again, nutrition actually gets dumped into the muscle tissue, that the protein cells in that muscle just takes in and says, yes, now we're on board with the vision of that bodybuilder. When we look at the goals of each bodybuilder in each category that they work with, as a massage therapist, we have to be extremely diverse. We have to keep an open mind. We have to understanding what category it is. So the bodybuilder, your client, the athlete has a specific vision, and they have this vision from the time they meet up with their coach to grow season to the prep phase. They're going to tell you exactly what they're looking for. It's up to you to jump on board with that vision. And it could be very taxing to each bodybuilder, because as clients come through your room, one minute you're working with an open bodybuilder, the next minute you're working with a physique competitor, next minute you're working with, a wellness competitor, then bikini. So you're going to have to jump all over the board throughout the day, trying to understand so many different categories. So jump on board with the goal of each client, really get an understanding of what they're looking for. And this is where we can start to maneuver around the muscle tissue, where we can contour each muscle group to actually expose more of it as they pose, flex, contract, and actually have a nice polished look when they get to game day. So I believe working on fascia to just minimize those adhesions so the muscle tissue can actually perform as well as it can. I do want to touch up on the deep tissue work during the prep phase. And I really want to, I can't stress it enough, not to use a lot of deep tissue. Sometimes it's needed, I understand that. But during the prep phase, we're really looking for muscle performance in the gym floor. So the last thing you want to do is just aggressively work on muscle tissue during a prep phase, because it worked during the growth phase and now they can't train for 2 or 3 days. Our goal is, can we keep the muscle tissue performing? Can the athlete just keep going to the gym, performing, not skipping a workout, not skipping a leg day, not skipping a cardio session? They can get the treatment, the massage treatment, actually feel better, perform better, have better muscle activation, more muscle growth, and a good blood flow. The last phase is peak week. Oh man, this is where it gets really tricky. Peak week gets extremely tricky, but I'm just gonna simplify this really, really easy. And for all massage therapists who always wanna learn the newest and latest techniques of what you can do to work that looks really cool on social media and all that, but keeping it basic to effleurage. Effleurage treatments are gonna work the best during peak week. It's a very light touch. That's where we work on blood flow, everything flowing to the heart. It increases the lymphatic system. That's what's actually gonna flush out all the stagnation, all the water that's being held. It's gonna keep that fascia pliable. So why stick to effleurage? And this is just my belief system, and it's one thing I teach to other people I speak to one-on-one, is peak week is so unique to bodybuilders, because now, instead of just thinking about, oh, how can I grow? The diet's been so long. This is where they're gonna manipulate their body. They're gonna manipulate muscle tissue on pure nutrition. That some people will increase water, some people will decrease water. Some people will stay in high fats, some people will eat an excess amount of carbohydrates, where their diet phase was, oh, I'm only getting 100 grams or 50 grams of carbs, and now they're eating close to 700 to 800 grams per day. So the nutrition is gonna change so much and so uniquely. Even the sodium, potassium, you name it, protein intake, all this is gonna change just to showcase a good physique. That's on the coaches and opposing coaches to really take on that task. We have to understand what we see visually, because at the end of the day, bodybuilding is all about presentation. Regardless of how many hours they put into the gym, how many cardio sessions they had to do, now it all shows up to game day, which is at the end of peak week. How do you look on stage, and can we actually help them as massage therapists during peak week? A lot of bodybuilders love to use massage therapists these days, so don't overstress the muscle tissue. Work very light, work on fascia. Use the technique effleurage, maybe a little petrissage. That's gonna work on your glide during the flow of massage. All this is to help flush out any stagnation of water in the muscle tissue that you can see in the skin. So I summed all these down to just 3 different phases and what we can do and how we can attack it as massage therapists. Their growth phase, their prep time, it's when they start to diet in their peak week. Just as a conclusion, their growth phase, they eat an excess amount of calories. They may train a whole lot differently, heavier weights, maybe free weights. But with that excess calories, they can actually recover a whole lot faster. That's why you can use the more aggressive approach, because they're at an excess calories. You might want to lighten up and work mostly on fascia. I believe that's the number one key when they're in their prep phase, because the calories start to deplete. There's no reason to stress out the body even more when their calories decrease and they increase energy output into the gym. Some athletes, again, might have to do 2 hours of cardio plus a training session. In peak week, just stay in very light touch with effleurage. So understanding bodybuilding is probably one of the most unique sports that you can try to understand. So I encourage any massage therapist, if you want to work with bodybuilders, and there are many massage therapists that personally reach out to me, say, I only want to work with bodybuilders. I want you to ask yourself a couple questions. Do you understand the sport of bodybuilding? Do you understand the categories? Do you understand their philosophy of training? Because there's so many different ways that they train, all for very specific reasons. Do you even have a gym membership, or do you spend time at a gym? If you don't, it's going to be very difficult to understand when they ask of you certain things that you're like, why would you ask for that? There's no curriculum for me to do this. Some might ask for wider shoulders. Can you help me get a wider back? Can you help me get more detail in my legs? Can you help me look full but not too lean? Can you help expose more details and cuts in the fiber? All these are just concepts that really isn't taught to massage therapists in any school or any program or any curriculum. So get to understand these athletes, hang out at a gym, get to know a few of them. And the best thing that I believe you could do is, if you want to dive into the sport of bodybuilding as a massage therapist, is try to donate 1 day or maybe 2 days a month. Offer some free sessions, maybe 15-minute sessions, and just get to talk to them. Because what's going to happen, you're going to meet new athletes, you're going to meet new people, potentially clients. You're going to understand their training methods, their ideologies, their philosophies. You're going to understand their pain and symptoms. Because now we're just talking about how to approach the touch. That's what we've mostly been talking about. But understand, some athletes will train even though they're still injured. Some athletes might have pre-existing conditions, past surgeries that might limit how they can grow, but they're still in the sport. So bodybuilders are very unique athletes where no matter what, they will stay disciplined, routine, and still show up to the gym because they're very passionate about training and what happens to them and how they can actually grow as a bodybuilder, So it's very easy for a massage therapist to say, hey, this is too stressed out. I want you to take a week off or take the weekend off. And the bodybuilder says, hey, guess what? I still got to do my cardio first thing in the morning. So no matter what you tell me, I'm still going to be on that Stairmaster for 45 minutes, maybe an hour. But, so these are hurdles that we have to face. We can give them ideas, but how can you actually de-stress muscle tissue so they can keep performing? That's our main goal. So that's why I believe not one single technique or modality is going to trump another, but what's your value of touch? What's your intention? Is it going to match up with the athlete's goal? And can it actually meet one-on-one so they can keep performing in the gym? They can keep growing, they can keep performing, they can keep posing and still show up to each gym session, whether it's 2 a days, 3 a days, or once a day. They're not going to stop regardless. That's the craziest part. Bodybuilders won't stop going to the gym, even if they're injured, even if you tell them, hey, I don't want you to, but guess what? They still will. Anyways, if you like this video, hit the like, subscribe, shoot a comment. If you have any questions, you want to talk about my mentorship program, I'm gonna put my Instagram tag right there. Shoot me a DM, and yeah, hope you like this video.